Welcome to Rebel Speak and Be Encouraged. I want to pray Psalm 114 over you. And I want to speak into any discouragement. Any longing of the heart that is hurting, setbacks, disappointments. I want to speak God's goodness and strength from Psalm 114 into your life and over your experience. There's something about this psalm that's very cute. Very sweet and yet very powerful. I want to say that. When the Israelites escaped from Egypt, let's think about Egypt. Slavery, oppression, hatred. Learned hatred is where over time one culture is taught to hate another culture. And we see this in this story. There's this learned hatred. Sometimes there's prejudice that's born out of unfamiliarity. That's different than learned hatred. Learned hatred, when you're around learned hatred, you can feel it because the hatred makes no sense. So it's not like, oh, I don't really like the way you do that, or I prefer the way I do it, or something like that. That's biased due to familiarity. But learned hatred is like, I've been taught to hate these things about you. Who you are, I hate. And there was Israel that was brought into this land of Egypt, and they were despised. And when they said things aren't fair, they were treated worse, right? And so here we are in Psalm 114. There's just this light, touching upon, right? Just touching upon this storyline of misery. Okay? When the Israelites escaped from misery, when the family of Jacob left that foreign land, see, that's just like a kind of a good riddance, right? A good riddance. The land of Judah became God's sanctuary. Wow. And Israel became his kingdom. So God had called Abraham, and God had called Isaac, and God had called Jacob and changed Jacob's name to Israel. And then, of course, Joseph is Jacob's son. And Joseph's how they get to Egypt. But when God meets them in their misery, they become God's sanctuary, God's dwelling place. Precious. And Israel became his kingdom. I want you to think of that. Like, what do kingdoms, a king is proud of his kingdom, his land. Right? God says, my delight is in her. The Red Sea saw them coming and hurried out of their way. This is, of course, personification. And it's just, they were in this situation that was a point of no return. And the author is reminding the people of, like a way of looking upon the places in our life where God has brought salvation, and looking tenderly upon a moment in time where God has met us, and thinking through our life in that logic of God tenderly meeting us where we've desperately needed God. The Red Sea saw them coming and hurried out of their way. The water of the Jordan River turned away. That's a different story, right? That's a story 40 years later. That's a story after the wilderness. And the author here is taking these two moments in time where God moved the story forward in love and imagination. The mountains skipped like rams, the little hills like lambs. God moves, and there's this pivoting in time of circumstances moving forward, and there's just this sweetness to this remembrance of how God works on our behalf, of God's love and God's delight and God's goodness and God's faithfulness, and times in our life that things are frightening. They're frightening. But love is all around us. We're not alone. We're not lost to the situation and to the circumstance. We're a loved child in the midst of it. What's wrong, Red Sea, that made you hurry out of their way? Do you see? It's a little bit like a child's story. What happened, Jordan River, that you turned away? Why mountains did you skip like rams? Why little hills like lambs? I just want to speak to the circumstances of your life that feel great, mighty, oppressive, no way out, no way forward. And I'm going to say to you, you're going to tell a story. Right? Thinking of Elf telling the story about all that Elf, I don't remember it, but it's story-like, right? Over the sea and blah, blah, blah. And I don't want to make light, but wherever you are in your situation and circumstances, God is making a way forward. And you're going to say to the mountains, ready? Here we go. What's wrong, Red Sea, that made you hurry out of their way? What happened, Jordan River, that you turned away? Why mountains did you skip like rams? Why little hills like lambs? Tremble. Now, this is a powerful juxtaposition. I want to speak to your circumstances right now. I want to say to the situations that are mocking you, perhaps. The threat of financial ruin. It's not more powerful than God. God's going to get you through this. Tremble, O earth, at the presence of Yahweh. There's a powerful shift from the little mountains to know this is the reality of our God. This is the God you and I worship, the God who is living, and the God who is able, and the God who is willing. Tremble, O earth, at the presence of Yahweh, at the presence of the God of Israel. That's our God. The God that identifies, that says, this is my name attached to you. The God of Rebecca, the God of your name. The God on my side, the God who is for me, such that nothing can stand against me. This is the God we're talking about. This is the God who's moving on my behalf, who's telling my story from God's vantage point. That the seas that are near to overwhelming me right now, I will look back upon them and say, what's wrong, Red Sea, that made you hurry out of my way? What happened, Jordan River, that you turned away? Why mountains did you skip like rams? The mountains don't look like rams. They're real mountains. They're really in the way. There's some circumstances in my life right now that feel very immobile, immovable. They're mocking me a bit, but I just am reading this and speaking to them. No, you're gonna skip like a lamb, mountain. You're gonna skip like a ram, mountain, and little hills like a lamb. Sorry, I got that imagery a little off, but I had a ram named BJ in my life. He could skip. Tremble, O earth, at the presence of Yahweh, at the presence of the God of Israel. Tremble. Enemies of mine, tremble, because you've met your match in my God. You've met your match in my God, and my God's going to deliver me, and my God's going to take care of me. And the things that are threatening me now, God has a path and a way forward that I might not see right now, because at the edge of the Red Sea, they did not see that path that was about to be exposed. They didn't see it on the Jordan. It didn't look like a way forward or a way through, but it was. Mountains don't look like a way forward or a way through, but they are. Yahweh turned the rock into pools of water. I love this contrast. God can deal with the waters, and God can deal with the rocks. He turned the rock into pools of water. Yes, springs of water came from solid rock. That's when they were thirsty. This is just a really kind of a sweet, if you will. God walks into the situation and circumstance, whatever it is, and God forces, if you will, that circumstance and that situation to respond to my needs. It's not entitlement. It's not entitlement. It's not magic. Like, I can't conjure what I need right now. I can wait on Yahweh. And I can say, I'm expectant because of your nature, God. I'm expectant of you to deliver me. I'm expectant of you to go before me. I'm expectant for there to be a way forward. I'm expectant because of who you are, Yahweh. Not because of who I am. And not really because of the nature of creation, because it's God defying the nature of creation. My trust's not in creation. My trust's not in karma. My trust not that I've been good enough that there's going to be a way forward. That's not, no. Mm-mm. My trust is that Yahweh is the God who makes a way. That as I say, God, you're my God, God says, you're my people. Rebecca, you're my people. And we can be in the midst of a thing that we need a way forward. And I just want to say it one more time. The Red Sea saw them coming, the people, and hurried out of their way. The water of the Jordan River turned away. The mountains skipped like rams, the little hills like lambs. What's wrong, Red Sea, that made you hurry out of their way? What happened, Jordan River, that you turned away? Why, mountains, did you skip like rams? Why, little hills like lambs? Then this very adult language, tremble, O earth. I'm going to speak to my circumstances. Tremble. Tremble. Defying situations. Defying financial realities. Tremble. 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 Tremble at the presence of Yahweh. Tremble. Tremble. Tremble, evil. Tremble. Tremble, defiant. You that are defying God's will in the lives of those I love. Tremble. Tremble. Tremble that which would defeat me. Tremble, tremble, tremble at the presence of the God of Rebecca. Tremble, tremble, for he turned the rock into pools of water. Where there is lack, it's scary where they are. They need water, and God provided water. Yes, springs of water came from solid rock. This is a beautiful poem, and I speak this poem into your circumstances, where the enemy exaggerates his own greatness in the midst of our need. It's easy to have fear in the midst of need, but it's God's entire history that says, no, I'm the God that provides. I provide in the wilderness, I provide in the desert, I provide in the mountains. Be encouraged, be blessed.